What's up, everybody? Nate Wilson here. Happy quarantine to everybody. Happy lockdown. I hope you guys are surviving and thriving still, too. I know the times are tough. I know this is way out of everyone's comfort zone. I know people are stressed out. This virus has kind of taken the country, the world by storm. I know I underestimated it. I know there's a lot of other people who have. There's that fine line between being cautious and being aware of what's going on and not panicking and handling it rationally too. I hope everyone has found that balance for themselves. I know I'm still discovering that for myself. I just wanted to make a video today that I felt inspired to make. Um, in the weeks leading up to this lockdown, I noticed I see it. Well, I've been seeing it for years, but I see all these a lot of times on social media or talking with people. I hear people say that they hate going out in public, or they hate being around other people, or they hate going to the grocery store, or anything that kind of glorifies or encourages like antisocial mindsets. And I got real tired of it because I there was one day I was reading something on Facebook and someone made a remark about how they just hate people and hate going out and blah blah blah. And I know we all get, to certain points where we need to stay home and kind of focus on self, practice self-care. I wouldn't say isolate, but just draw boundaries with the rest of the world. I know that, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly okay. But to say you hate going out and you hate being around people, I think people just take that to a new level, and it's almost glorified nowadays. It's almost like who can hate the world the most, and it's people are trying to make it sound like it's them versus the world, and I don't know if that makes them feel like they're fighting a bigger battle than what they actually are, or if it makes them feel I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it makes them feel stronger than they actually are. I don't know. But I just want to make a video just telling everyone to quit the hate, quit hating on people you don't know, quit going out in the public with a bad attitude. And I mean, the good news is everyone's in quarantine now. So if you did really, truly, sincerely hate being around people, you're getting the remedy for it right now. But I want to challenge everyone to do a little bit better when we come out of this quarantine and this lockdown. And the reason I talk about this is because I actually used to be exactly like that. I used to hate people. I used to hate the general public. I hated society. And I wanted society to fall, essentially. I was that crazy where I just wanted the end of society. I wanted the collapse. I wanted to see the end of the world. But I no longer live in that mindset. And so I look back at how I got like that and what my mindset uh, was like, and how it was conditioned, how my brain was conditioned to think like that. And in high school, I kind of started isolating myself a little more, and that was kind of when I started using substances. I was picked on a couple of times too, and so I know that kind of made me feel like an outcast. That made me not want to be around people as much. And of course, I found a remedy for that when I drank or when I used. It made me feel more accepted and made me feel more validated. And of course, when I started using harder drugs, then I started isolating more and putting a big barrier between myself and the rest of the society. And of course, when I discovered meth, especially when I started uh, becoming involved in that subculture, I really just despised society and despised people. People who weren't like me, anyways. People who didn't think like I did. I was very ignorant at that age of 17 years old and being under the influence, heavy influence of crystal methamphetamine. And I can remember when I was a tweaker, getting high, staying up all night, and then seeing the sun come up the next morning and dreading it. It was probably the biggest feeling of dread and fear that I had when I saw that sun come up, because I knew I was going to have to go out in public. I knew I was going to have to be around people. I knew I was going to have to be around people who challenged my thinking and challenged, the direction that I was going with my life. And I hated it. And that's why I gravitated more towards that subculture of, criminal activity, antisocial behavior, that tweaking subculture. For those of you who are in addiction or addiction recovery, then you know what that subculture is like. It's a totally different society. There's no rules. It's chaos. It's just, it's different. And a lot of the addicts accept each other for using drugs. It's acceptable in that culture. So I guess that's why I gravitated towards that. But even as I quit doing the hard drugs, I still isolated myself. I still drank for years. Going out to the bars, using alcohol as a way to cope with my social anxiety and my despise for society still is kind of how I dealt with all that. And even when I would go to work in the workplace, I remember working in the kitchen one time being a cook, and I liked that because it kind of isolated me from the rest of the population, the general public, which was probably good for me at the time because I didn't really have that great of social skills, I don't think. I was funny to joke around with and had a lot of fun in the back, but that's because I was outcasted and I had that barrier between me and the rest of the world. I liked that feeling. And even when I went to a different job, I still being kind of a bitter alcoholic, I just despised people who weren't like me. And working in a sheet metal shop, I didn't like people who had different stories than me. I thought that, me being an addict and me going through what I went through was one of the worst things you could go through. And if you hadn't been through it, then you just couldn't understand it. I couldn't explain it to you. And I wasn't willing to explain it to you. I wasn't willing to give empathy to you because I was scared that it wouldn't be given to me either. Because I was scared that people wouldn't understand. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes people don't truly understand what addiction is unless they've been through it. But that doesn't mean we can't have empathy for each other, and that's where I was mistaken back then. And so I was still a hater, even though I wasn't doing hard drugs. I was still drinking, and I was just a hater on people. Unless you had a history with drug addiction, had a felony, you'd been locked up before, you were a little bit like me in thinking, I generally didn't want to be around you. I didn't hang out with you. I wasn't willing to learn new things from you. I wouldn't hang out with you unless you were drinking with me or something. For me, there was no purpose at the time. That's what my thinking told me. So I was a big hater too. Hate the world, me versus the world, blah blah blah. And when I got into personal training and finally pursued something that I really had a passion for, I got challenged because the reason I got into personal training was because I liked working out. Me, totally selfish move on my part to become a personal trainer when I started. And I figured since I liked working out, that was all I was good at. So that's what I'm going to do for a living. I'm going to collect a paycheck for it, and that's going to be it. And I thought personal trainers made more money than they do at the time, too. But I remember going to Gold's Gym to look for a job. And after I got certified, I was going to look for a job. And I told this guy what I was looking for, and he said, "Yeah, you're not going to make a lot of money being a personal trainer here, man. But if you're looking to help some people, then that'll be all right. You might make it here." And I didn't like that. It challenged me, and it totally took me outside of my comfort zone. And I realized that just because I like working out, that's not going to make me a good personal trainer. That's part of it. You do have to have a passion for fitness, and I think you do need to be a product of what you sell, and you need to practice what you preach. But just because I like working out doesn't mean I'm compatible to work with someone else. I can be the best at training myself and still suck as a personal trainer. And I didn't realize that at the time. And as I got involved with more people, and once I figured out that I wasn't going to make it in a place like Gold's Gym or 24 Hour Fitness, I was kind of forced to work for myself and become an entrepreneur, which I thank God for to this day because that's what keeps me alive. And I feel like it was in my genes from the beginning, and I was just waiting to find it. But once I started learning from other entrepreneurs and business owners what business was about and what entrepreneurship was about, it's all about providing service to people. It's all about service to other people. And I really just, once I overcame that selfishness, I swallowed that whole. And I found a new purpose in life, and it was to serve others, serve other people. And it totally changed my world, and it totally took me outside of myself and totally changed my perspective on people. And once I became an entrepreneur, of course, I had to start networking more, and I had to meet people who I was not comfortable with mingling with, particularly just because, I have felonies. I've had a real bad meth-induced psychosis. I'm kind of messed up in the head. Sometimes I have really bad social anxiety, and that was not comfortable for me when I was first becoming an entrepreneur. It sucked a couple of times. I felt so stupid being around people, and just the way conversation worked in big groups. It was very intimidating to me. And even to this day, sometimes I get really quiet in meetings and stuff, and that's just because I'm really observant and I want to learn how to do it better. Because sometimes I still need to improve my social skills. Sometimes I thrive, and then other times I get reverted back to where I was when I was a tweaker and I couldn't really socialize much. Um, but I started changing my perspective and I quit hating on people, because once I started meeting with people and talking with them and learning about their stories, I learned that people are not so different from me. Even though I'm a drug addict and I hear all the time about, oh, your story is so extreme and different and what you've been through is so crazy. But in talking with other people, everyone's been through some type of hardship, and we can all relate through that. Hard things that we've overcome and adversities, that's the common ground people have. And they might not be the same, and it's going to take a little bit of interpretation and open-mindedness and empathy on our parts, but we are human beings across the globe are more alike than they are different for the most part. Most people are alike, and if you really try and you take time to get to know someone and talk with them, there's no way you could hate them unless they want you to hate them. And of course, you don't have to choose to hate them even if they want you to hate them. You just have to draw a boundary with them and know when to say, hey, this conversation's got to end, or I'm not going to be a part of your life anymore because you're not ready for my energy and you're bad for my energy. But providing service to people, when you look at life as when you take on that perspective and you use that as your purpose, it totally changes everything, and it gives you more self-worth too. Because in order to provide service to someone, that means you have to have something to offer, and you have to have some sort of self-worth or self-esteem. And otherwise you wouldn't have anything to serve to others. And that's what's so beautiful about it too, is I was forced to level up and figure out what I had to offer people. And that's what I love about business so much is I believe in business so much because I believe in service. And I don't think you should get paid for every single service you do. I think you should do things just out of the goodness of your heart, and you should do volunteer work and just be good to people. But there are times, yeah, if I could do that all day, every day, I could. But, the world runs off currency, and I have no problem when I look at someone and see that they've made lots of money, they've been real successful, millions, even those people that have made billions that you see on YouTube doing those motivational videos. I love that. And you don't get to that level unless you're providing service to others and being of service to other people. That's what I love so much about business. And I look at those people and see how much self-worth they must have, and how much they've had to level up over the years. And don't get me wrong, I still get frustrated sometimes. I still have those moments where I'm not going out into public because I know I'm going to be toxic. And when I hear people say, I hate people, I hate the world, whatever, hate the public, that just means that they don't like themselves at the moment. They're going through something, they need to grow, something like that. They're not ready to go be around other people because they're the toxic ones. It's not that the whole world is toxic. There's toxic things in the world. But going out into public and, hating the fact that you have to go to the grocery store, or hating the fact that you have to go see your dog groomer or your personal trainer, or go to the drive-through window and deal with those people, that just means you don't like yourself and you hate yourself, man. So you need to flip that script a little bit and think a little different about that. And one thing I also want other people to take note of is, just because you draw boundaries with someone and you're frustrated with someone, it doesn't mean that you quit believing in them. And like I was talking about before, when I started networking and meeting with a lot of new people, I started believing in people. I started believing that everyone has this potential inside of them. Everyone has something different to offer the world, different than me, different perspectives, something different that makes them special. I believe in every single person in this world. Some people won't find that potential. Some people might fall short, but I believe more people will find that potential and have that realization in life, whether it's when they're 20 years old or whether it's when they're 60 years old or whether it's on their deathbed. I believe everyone is going to come to realization with some sort of identifying their potential. And so just because I draw boundaries with someone, which I've had to do a lot of times over the years, whether it's friends that still use, kids that I work with, new people I come across, just because I draw a boundary with them doesn't mean I quit believing in them. And I've got friends that I'm not talking to now that I know I can never stop believing in them, because I could meet them in another year, in another 5 years, and they could come back and be like, Nate, I'm sober. I've done all this stuff with my life. I'm a good father. I have a family, whatever. Like, what now, you know? And I don't want to be caught. I don't want to be caught underestimating them, because that means I was thinking lowly of myself. And if I doubt that person, that means I saw something in them that was a shortage inside of myself. And so just because I draw boundaries with someone doesn't mean I don't know deep down that that person in a couple of years could come back and show me what's up and teach me something about life. And so I'm always aware of that. As much as I can be, I'm always aware of that. And a good example of that is a kid I was working with a while back. This kid put me through the ringer. He was one of the first kids I started working with. I thought I was going to get him to change and force him to change, and to quit smoking pot and quit partying and doing whatever else. And he was not having it. He was not about it. He owned me. And that's because I got so emotionally attached to working with this kid that I forgot to draw the boundary. And I thought that the harder I pushed, the more he would do what I wanted him to do. It just wasn't the case. So it came time one day. It was a couple of weeks before I finally cut him loose out of the program and said, hey, it's not going to work. I was real frustrated with him. I had a totally negative perspective of this kid. And I knew he was a good kid deep down, but I was just so frustrated. And I was like, this kid's never going to amount to anything, or he's never going to do anything for anyone but himself. And I went into our appointment thinking that. And I remember this kid came out with a box of brand new football cleats. Brand new. I mean, these were Nikes. They had to cost $150 at least. And he's like, you know what? I'm not going to use these, Nate. I want you to give these to your stepson and let him use them. And this kid totally chose to be a selfless person in that moment and give me these awesome Nike cleats to give to my stepson. And I felt so ashamed that I thought so negatively of him, just because he had, essentially just because he's a hurt person who's been through a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean he's selfish. He's just in survival mode right now. And I underestimated him, and I got smacked in the face with reality because of that. And so that's why it's so important that you can't stop believing in people. You got to believe in people, and you got to quit hating on people. No one's perfect. You're not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. I'm going to go out and make tons of mistakes, probably starting tomorrow or maybe even tonight. And I want to be given the same grace. And so I'm going to give that to other people as well. And the whole point of me making this video is just, I want to let all of you know that at the end of this lockdown, maybe we can go out and have better attitudes about each other, quit hating the world. And there's always going to be differences of perspectives. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be frustration. There's going to be boundaries that have to be drawn sometimes. But we can still believe in each other. And I refuse to believe that there's more bad on this earth than there is good, especially when it comes to people. I do think there's more good people out there than there is bad. And I don't know who's to blame for how how that perspective has kind of changed. I don't know if it's the media. I don't know if it's social media. I don't know if it's just humans having low self-esteem. I don't know, but I refuse to believe that, and I believe that there's more good people out there than there is bad. So I want to challenge all of you to go out, meet someone new, hear their story, empathize with them, learn from them, and check yourself. And don't ever underestimate other people, because like I said, there is something in every person on this earth that I don't know about yet. And I want to learn as much as I can before I die from each and every person. So, if you guys want to do some networking, if you want to talk with me during this quarantine lockdown, work has definitely slowed down a little bit. Hit me up, send me a message, send me a text, let's talk, whatever. I hope you guys are doing well. Don't isolate yourselves too much. Stay inspired, stay active, and love on each other. Have a good one.